Hello, happy Wednesday to everyone. I'm just going to give everyone a few minutes here while I get some stream set up. Today we are talking about networking and how important it is for both your job search, if that's where you are right now, and also for your career. So once I get all of these channels started, I think we are good. All right, awesome. Wherever you are viewing, I will try and monitor comments, but I may not always be able to. So if I see comments after the fact, I will definitely circle back. But today I wanted to talk about networking. And this is timely because it's networking season. I always feel like going into fall, sort of end of summer and fall becomes a big networking time in the biotech space. Summer is a little bit slow, but we're starting to see some things pop onto the calendar, some fun conferences coming up. And yesterday, my COO at Recruitomics, Allison Hall, and she's also the co-founder at Collaboratory, she and I attended a networking event in Boston that was hosted by the Boston Business Journal. They do fantastic events. I should just plug them. The Boston Business Journal always does really good events. It was a panel event yesterday. They had 3 different panels talking about different really important things. Like one panel was all about technology and AI in biotech. That was fascinating. Another panel was all about I guess loosely about app-based healthcare and how people are putting healthcare in their pockets now, which is really cool. Bringing diagnostics into the home, sort of ushered in by the era of COVID testing, and also, at-home dermatology and at-home testing and at-home diagnostics. So it was really neat. And then the last panel was all about biomanufacturing, and that, of course, changed a lot with the landscape of the COVID vaccine and all of the diagnostic tests that we needed to manufacture. And the speed at which we can now ramp up manufacturing is staggering. So that's been really interesting. And it was a nice panel. So then it was followed, I guess before the event, there was some networking, and it was followed by a nice networking event where they had dinner, sort of. I didn't actually eat there, but I never do because it's awkward. So we'll talk about this, but it's awkward to eat and drink at networking events. And how do you navigate that? So so that's one thing to note. But there was food, there was beverages, you could get wine, beer, mocktails, whatever you wanted, and about an hour of really good, high quality networking. So what we actually ended up in a conversation with one individual there, and this individual was saying like, oh, young people today don't really care about networking. Look, nobody's here, and sort of looking around and pointing out that Gen Z really wasn't at that table, at that event at all. And when I did look around and thinking of the people I met, it was executives, it was C-suite, it was executives, it was very high-level folks at this particular event. And it makes sense, right? It was an expensive event. When we really sat down and looked at the cost of attending this event, it was, I think the tickets for 2 of us, were around $300, somewhere in that neighborhood. We had to take a day off of running our companies to go down to Boston. We had to pay for parking. There was, lost productivity and all of that. So you're looking at what your ROI is there, return on investment. And it's really interesting to think about, if I were just starting out in biotech, if I was a student graduating, or if I were, getting ready to change jobs, but I was fairly entry level or early career, I think the barrier to entry for that particular event would be untenable. I don't see paying for that event. And here's why. The event was fantastic. To me, I look at that event and I look at the price tag associated with it, and I look at the type of event it was, a high-level panel with, CEOs and founders and folks that are really industry leaders talking about broad industry topics. And I know that I'm going to be at that networking event meeting decision makers, which is really key, right? I will say, though, that that's intimidating if you are just starting out. And the price tag of that event would probably be a barrier to entry. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how to approach that, because we want more people at that table. I think it would be valuable for more entry-level folks to be at those events, giving their opinions, networking, rubbing shoulders with the folks that are making the decisions later on, because we were talking about we were talking about them. We were talking about the future of talent. We were talking about the challenges of attracting and retaining a really high quality workforce and what do companies need to do that. And that was, I think, a misstep to not have anybody from that population at the table saying, well, I'd like this, or this is what I'm thinking. So let's talk about how you could actually accomplish that. So first of all, these in-person networking events are difficult because you have to be in a geographic proximity to Boston to get there, or San Francisco, or Research Triangle, kind of wherever you are. If you are close to a biotech hub, that would be the place to go. You have to either want to pay for this yourself or have a company willing to pay for it for you. And you have to have the time to do it. So you have to feel secure enough that you could take an afternoon off. If you're local, it's an afternoon. For me, it was a whole day to get there, and to not be stressed about it, and to enjoy the networking and actually put your best foot forward. So there's a few things that are really difficult to navigate for younger or more entry-level folks here that are new to biotech. So one big piece of advice is you do not need to start with those networking events. So don't let that scare you off from networking altogether. There are a lot of more accessible events that are, I think, tailored more toward those entry level or early career individuals. And so you can still make amazing connections there. You can also join some online communities. So you're here in ours. If you're in the Facebook group watching, that's great. If you're on YouTube watching, that's a form of community. But you only get out what you put in to these communities. So I will just very politely say, if you are lurking and you are not commenting, you're not asking questions, you're not getting any visibility. So it's a little scary, I know, to pipe up and have your question, out there to the world, but that is really the best way to start getting over that fear of getting started. And so if you are in a community, an online community or otherwise, definitely contribute, because that is the best way to get noticed, to start to build your own personal brand, which is so important. And then if you are close enough to a region where you can do some networking, maybe your school has networking. If you're not close to one of these hubs, there are a lot of events that are geared more toward the younger professional or entry-level person. So you can join those. If you're early career and you're looking to level up to being a manager, for instance, there are some great events in person, but there are also some great online live events too. So being here, asking me a question, that would be one. It'll make me notice you, right? You can link in with me. You can start a conversation there. You can link in with anyone you want, really, in LinkedIn. But say why. Say why you're linking in with them. So one trick on LinkedIn is to go to a profile that you admire, that's maybe a couple of steps ahead of you in the career, and ask to join their network with a note and say, I would just really love to learn from you. I'm not asking for any of your time, but I'd love to follow your career. And often that leads to a conversation. So keep that in mind. And then we're building this very specific job seekers networking group in Slack, where you do have access directly to recruiters and industry folks that are coming in to give talks and to give that advice and who want to mentor. So think about that too. Our barrier to entry there, this week, it's free. It's free for the first 50 people. I think we'll actually cross that this week pretty soon. We haven't put it out to a wide audience. We wanted our engaged audience to have the chance first, but we're putting that, we'll be done with that by the end of the week. So if you want in there, definitely comment below this that you want into Slack. Just say the word Slack and we'll get you an invite. And if you're watching this later on and you see that and it's a little bit too late and we've already moved on to charging for it, know that it is very affordable. So we are going to keep it as affordable as we possibly can, so that everyone can participate and there isn't a barrier to entry, no matter where you are geographically, no matter where you are in your career, or where you are financially. So it's going to be less than the cost of a trip to Panera. We'll just say that. So this is a very, very low barrier to entry and a place where you can absolutely go and contribute. But again, you will not get you will not get anything out of it unless you contribute to it. So I'll say that again. You will not get anything out of it unless you contribute to it. You have to be speaking up. You have to be participating. You have to be asking questions and answering questions. That is what networking is all about. It is not a one-way thing. It is not I go in and take. It is very much a two-way conversation. And here's an example. So I met an individual yesterday who is a very good business contact to have. I'm very excited that I made his acquaintance. He is the strategic director of a company in Cambridge that works with all kinds of startups, tons of startups. I think they have over 700 startups. And that is my market for Recruitomics. I build startups. That is what I do. So I was very excited to meet him. And one thing that he is struggling with is programming for his startup. So he has a community there. That community wants to connect. They want to learn things. And so my value add for this person is, what can I do? What can I come in and teach your community? We could talk about how to market and brand your company. We could talk about how to attract talent. We could talk about benefits. We could talk about how to retain talent. All of these things are very much in my expertise and things that these startup companies need to know. And so I'm offering him a service. I'm saying, I'm happy to help. I'm happy to come provide that content that your community craves. And if he takes me up on that, then I have a platform in front of some new startups that I haven't maybe met yet. So that's how networking works. It is a give and a take. It is offering freely and just being open to what will come back from that. So that is networking. Let me talk a little bit about the challenges of networking from sort of a mental standpoint. So as I said, it's scary, right? If you were to walk into that room with all of those high-level executives and that was your first networking event ever, yeah, it's scary. That would be paralyzing. So start a little smaller. Start with an online community. There is no risk here in this Facebook community to start asking questions. No risk at all. We don't really know you. It's not a big gamble. So come on in, ask your questions. Get familiar with the folks in here because they may be your next source for a big job. Remember, 66% of jobs come from networking. So very important that you're doing it. So once you have mastered that and you're not so scared getting into these rooms and asking questions, then look around and see what kinds of events might be in live in person. So you've practiced now, which is so important. Practice makes perfect. Practicing in this community or in our Slack community with our recruiting team, practicing, speaking, networking, then go to an in-person event, a live event if you can. If you can't go to a totally live event, there are some great virtual events that you could go to, things like career fairs that are put on by various schools. So, get a little bit scrappy with your networking. If you need any tips on that, please ask questions. We have some really good ideas of where you can find some good networking. And once you have gone to one of those events or one or two or however many it takes to not be scared beforehand, then you can kind of start to approach, how could I get to a more meaningful networking event where I would be actually speaking with people who are, above where I am in the company. They're aspirational folks. How do I get there? So my tip there is to ask your employer. So by that point, you should be employed. You should be in your company. And there is nothing better for a boss, I can tell you from experience, than an employee coming with a proposal to go do something that is good for the company and themselves. So an example of that would be if somebody in that networking event yesterday had gone to their manager and said, I would like to attend this BBJ event because our company is starting to go down the path of manufacturing and they have a manufacturing panel with, these 4 people on it. And I'm excited to learn from them because I think our company is going to be going down that path and I can then bring back my notes for the group. So you've now pitched why it's important for the company, which is what your manager wants to hear. And, you can also tag on, this would be really great for my career development because my goal for this quarter is to do more networking. So they are also your manager. If they're a good manager, they are interested in supporting your goals. So that in that case would kind of be a double win for them. They're getting something for the company and they're also supporting you on something you'd like to do. And often they will do it. Often they will pay for your ticket to go to these events. So if that is intimidating, I suggest talking that through out loud. Again, practice makes perfect. Talking to yourself inside your head, walking through that conversation may not really actually help you when you go to approach your manager about it. So for the first few times when you're going to go have an ask like that, it's a little bit scary. Tell your friend, tell your mom, tell whoever, practice it with them, bounce it around. Tell our recruiters, come into one of our office hours and chat through what that conversation looks like. So it really does make a difference if you practice, but it also makes a difference if you ask and you structure the ask as, this is what it does for the company and this is what it does for me professionally. So those are my tips about how to get to those networking events. Some etiquette at networking events. First of all, apparel. it's very important that you are dressed very professionally at these events. So you will want to invest in some clothing for that. And that is, again, a barrier to entry sometimes for you to start out at some of these more expensive events. So once you're employed, once you have some disposable income there, it is definitely worth your while to purchase an outfit that you feel very comfortable in. You're going to be there for a long time. It's very air conditioned in these events. So nothing too chilly. I'm always freezing at them, no matter what I wear. And you will be there for hours, probably. You will be sitting, you will be standing. So comfortable shoes, comfortable clothes that look very presentable or very professional. You want to avoid eating a lot in the networking piece. Not it is not easy to have a good, meaningful conversation while you're chowing down on sushi. So yesterday I had all this sushi. It looked amazing. Allison and I didn't touch it because we really wanted to use that hour. We had 1 hour, and we were there not to eat. We were there to network. So we went ahead and got some seltzers. That's my other tip, is there's usually alcohol at these events. I personally don't drink, but if you do, I would advise either refraining or just having 1 glass of wine or something like that, because you definitely want to keep it very professional. So I opted for a seltzer with a lime so that I had something in my hand. That's a trick. There's always these tables kind of interspersed around. And so you can go and you can kind of set a drink on a table next to someone you want to network with and make an excuse, like you're rummaging in your bag. You have to answer a message or something like that. And you just say, hey, can I set this here? I've just got to answer an email. And then you can sort of segue into a little, oh, you're at XYZ company, because your name tag is on, right? So you'll know. And that's a really nice, easy way, rather than walking up to someone awkwardly and being like, hi, can I network with you? It is intimidating. And then the one last thing I'll leave you with is a little tactic. If you have a little icebreaker in your head, and nobody knows that you've used it on 10 other people in the room, so just keep that in mind. You can have 1 or 2 icebreakers, and I'll give you an example. When we first came out of the pandemic, and we were starting to go back to in-person networking events, Allison was telling her husband that it was just so scary and so intimidating to get back to networking, right? And so her daughter comes up and says, Mom, it's so easy. You just have to tell him your favorite color's pink, and then you're friends. And so it's just this cute little icebreaker of, like, kids are just, they say the darndest things, right? And so actually, that was one thing that I know Allison used in her chats yesterday with people, and it just makes an instant connection. She met someone who also has a daughter who also says, silly things, and you can just kind of break the ice very, very easily in that way. So those are my major tips. I think it's really important to start to get really comfortable with it. And the first place you can do it is here in this Facebook group. Or in YouTube, wherever you're watching this. If you are in YouTube and you don't know how to get in touch, just leave a message. We'll get you into one of these groups. The second place I would say is our Slack group. And we decided on Slack because it's really easy. A lot of companies use Slack. And so it's a place where people are familiar. It's very collaborative. It's very fun. So if you're not in the Slack group, it is free this week, up to a certain number of people. I'm not sure where we are yet on that count. I think we were saying the first 50 people. And then after that, we're going to charge a very small amount. And the reason we have to charge is because our team is devoting a lot of really good quality time to making that community useful and really making sure that people are in there, they're getting questions answered, they're meeting each other, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is networking. So that is a great option for you. And it's such a small investment. So I would really recommend you making this very small investment in yourself if you do come in after it's free, because a $10 a month, or I don't know what we're charging, I think it's $10 a month investment for now, is a very inexpensive way to give yourself an entree into biotech, where there are actual experts in here. So let me help you with that. I would love to. If you have any questions, please type in the comments, and I will circle back with each of you individually. Otherwise, have a wonderful day and get in here and ask some questions. We want to hear from you.